nowadays, most of you, when you have a preconception about Marxist, it's, weirdy, beardy, right, left wing, kind of revolutionary with an AK-47. You'll be relieved to know I haven't got an AK-47. The rest of it is probably reasonably accurate. So what I'm trying to do is give you an alternative way of value creation, an alternative approach to value creation as a business. And all I'd ask you to do is, if you want to be objective about it and suspend your preconceived ideas of what you may have come in to look at, to listen to today. I've got around about half an hour to try and give you an alternative way of creating value. And this is a business that I've set up 20 years ago now, so it works pretty well. So I'm going to rattle through quite a few slides. There will be on my LinkedIn, there's two LinkedIns for Simon Biltcliffe. One is me and the other is a plumber from Doncaster. So if you get the right one, I'll put a link up to this Prezi on there. And if you want to pop around and have a look at the idiosyncratic Yellow Shed of Wonderment, which is our office, you're more than welcome to. It's about 15 miles from here in Bicester. So you can feel free to email me from this. So, moving swiftly on. You've got 30 minutes of me. I'm proudly from Barnsley in Yorkshire. For those of you who may not be aware of what people from Barnsley are, we are direct. We swear quite a lot, so I apologise in advance if one or two swear words slip out. It's a verbal emphasis. It's italicisation or bolding of a word. And then I'm going to try and do 10 minutes Q&A afterwards if we've got it. And if you want to catch up with me afterwards, I'm going to have a wander around. So please feel free to have a chat. These are some of the issues that we've got in the business world. You've seen them all. This type of stupidity that Volkswagen doing, trying to cheat. These people who put themselves up as the big wonders of the world by taking money off the poorest in society. There is vested interests all over it. What I'm trying to do is trying to create an opportunity, a new way of value creating that will eliminate all of these, and including the environmental degradation and the abuse of people who are working in the UK and overseas. Our strategy, and I'll tell you very briefly what we do. Our strategy is to be the world's best print management business, and print is a massive marketplace. So we don't physically print anything, but we know the right printer at the right time for any print that anybody gets on. We've developed our own software over the years to do algorithmic trading for this, and that's what we do. So we buy and sell printing anywhere in the world for anything from bus sides and building wraps all the way through to Argos type catalogues and magazines and brochures. And we want to do it as a case study of how you can do that and be a really successful commercial concern and do as much good as you possibly can do at the same time. One of the things that we found in life generally is, I won't talk about these. All of it, you're full of all this. You'll have loads of books on all of this. I will be avoiding any of this kind of stuff all the way through. This is our strategy, and I think this is the easiest way of looking at business. Most time you start here. You start at C capital, whatever yourself. And then you want to try and get up to your destination, which is 100. Now, most businesses don't understand why they're in business. They've got no idea why they're in business. So if you ask most people who've made it, in inverted commas, why they are in business, they won't have a cogent answer for you. So the first thing is decide why you're in business. What are you doing it for? Then all you have to do is find as many ladders as you possibly can to get there as quickly as possible. And these are networks, these are peer groups, these are things like this kind of environment where you're meeting people that you wouldn't otherwise have met, and also avoiding the snakes. Now, being a northerner, we have this really useful way of finding out whether people are a snake, as in they're going to help you, or a ladder, they're going to screw you. So what we do is we trust everybody from day one of meeting them. No taking time doing it and all that kind of stuff. The very moment I meet somebody, I trust them. And then they will either live up to that trust, or they will screw you really quickly. One way or another, you know what type of person it is. So if you trust them from day one, happy days. They will be there, they will try and help you and support you. And the more you share with people, the more that they will trust you and the more that they will want to share back in return. And equally, you avoid the snakes because the people don't actually, they're not in your ecosystem anymore because you've realised that these people are not going to help you. And this is something that I always use because it's actually a very simple way of tracking the journey of an entrepreneur. Anybody who is in business is a positive person because you are not going to do it, you're not going to start up otherwise. To the outside world, it's good like this. It's fantastic, it's so easy, you've made it. It's like in history. History is written by the people who win. It's never written by the people who lose. So you never get books of the great defeated. And in business, you never get books about people who've actually failed. But everybody goes through that, and this is where that tenacity thing kicks in. Because as long as you've got a clear vision of where you want to go, you will deal with all of that. But if you don't know where you want to go, and if you don't know why you're doing it, then actually you get death by 1,000 cuts, which isn't a great place to be. I started off with £1,000 of saving in '96, so say it's 20 years ago now. And at the time, the world-leading Scion 3A, which was a personal organiser, which I had a database of all of the different types of printing presses that I needed to have on it. Fast forward, this is us now. These are the web martyrs, as we call them, in the yellow sheds. And with £30 million turnover, there's 3 yellow sheds, the nearest one being Bicester, just down the road, then Barnsley, where I'm from, and East Kilbride in Scotland. And we have 40 people. And we're aiming to grow again, so that we're aiming to get about £1 million per person as turnover over the next year or two. This is what a workplace in Webmart looks like. This is the Yellow Shed of Wonderment, and it's an unusual place. I'll do a few screen grabs later on just to show what it is. But the truth of the matter is, if you want people to be creative, you've got to put them in a creative place and give them freedom to be creative. If you put them all in sterile boxes, you will get sterile ideas because you don't get inspiration if you don't have clever and interesting surroundings. So our building is a very interesting building. So now on to how we achieve this. How do we achieve a better business model? Well, the trouble is most of the world is like this. It's measured on one level, and there's an old adage, for the man with a hammer, the whole world is a nail. And so if you look at the world only through one dimension, as in the financial, and ignore everything else, then you've lost an awful lot of opportunity to differentiate yourself. You can always be successful financially if you're the best, if you engage people better, if you come up with more creative solutions. So to me, the last thing that you want to be interested in is the financials. They will take care of themselves. So we work on the Maslowian hierarchy of needs as a business, as a kind of guide. My role as chief exec, whatever you want to call me, is to make sure that these things are looked after. So, physiological safety and belonging, making it a great working place to do, because everybody wants to get their staff and their ideas from the top. So you have to give this, and this is where people who give 0 hours contracts and who have insecure workforces, you will never get up to the clever stuff at the top if you don't respect people and you don't look after them. And what it does, it leads to an inversion of the conventional wisdom of how you run a business. Because all you need to do, if you want to be the best at anything, is to maximise 3 things. The intellectual return that people get, the emotional return that people get, and the financial return, lastly, that people get. And if you engage people on those 3 levels, you're going to be the best employer and you're going to get the best out of everybody. If you've got a good strategy, a good why, then people are aligned to that and will deliver exceptional returns from that. Intellectual comes first. Because intellectual, if you're good at something and you're enjoying doing it, and you're pushed, you're challenged, you're trained, you're given every opportunity to maximise that out of it, you enjoy yourself. Because if you're good at something, you enjoy it. If you're bad at something, you don't enjoy it. So you can understand people, understand what they're great at, and then invest in that and allow them to be fantastic at that. As a consequence of that, they enjoy it, you've got a great workplace, and as a outcome of that, you make significant amounts of money, which you can then share, which is the Marxist bit I'll come on to later. It is simply not just about money. And all of these companies that try and focus on that and leverage this and do that, you end up with the kind of Volkswagens of the world in it, and back in the day, the Enrons, and you get the MP's expenses scandal and all this kind of nonsense, because people are too concentrated on the money. And this is the overused strength of capitalism. It is a fantastic way of creating value. It's really poor in many other areas of understanding these externalities and sharing it, which I'll come on to later. The truth of the matter is also that you read a lot of books if you come to university, and most of them will be about people who've made it in the past. The truth of the matter is the old style of making it really doesn't work anymore. 100 years ago this year, it was the start of the Somme, and on one day 50,000 people died, the 1st of July 1916. And it was this guy who had a fantastically compelling marketing story of how to get people on to do it, and it was a really compelling one. But this style of leadership really doesn't work anymore, yet still in media this is how business is portrayed, because you've got this wanker here doing the same kind of thing. And if you look at, nobody in the right mind would want to employ anybody who won that apprentice series or work for him. Nobody would actually want to create a successful business in that, with that DNA in it. The truth of the matter is, if you want to be respected, these are the kind of people that have got the traits that people really do look after in a leader. They've got a really clear vision of what they wanted to do. It wasn't popular at the time. None of those people were popular to the majority of the vested interests out there, the establishment out there. But they had a true vision, a very humble approach, but a very determined approach to get where they want to get, and people resonate around that. They know that they're authentic and genuine people, and from a leadership perspective, if you've got that, people really, really come to you. They really will put a shift in for everything that you stand for, because they believe that you absolutely are working in their best interest for something that they passionately believe in as well. So my leadership style is really simple. Instead of me being at the top and looking down, I'm at the bottom here, supporting the team leaders, supporting the frontline employees to look after the team. It's an inverted style. I am literally there to support my leadership team, to facilitate them to do fantastic things for their team, because the people who are on the front line know all of the innovation, know all of the improvements that need to be made to your business, not me. I'm not sitting with customers all day. They are. So by having these people driving the operational involvement within a very clear strategy, within a very clear moral code, then it's a really simple way of running a business. So you look at the two together, it works. You want people at the top here, frontline employees, with the opportunity to be creative, to come up with better solutions than you could ever do within a conventional structure. And all I'm doing is making sure that I look after this from the bottom, the team leaders, looking after making sure that the people are enjoying themselves within the business, and voila, you've got a business that supports its team, supports its customers, and supports each other much better than the conventional structure. So all I need to do is then maximise the value add in each of those areas. So what I try and do is run through each one of those. It's just, you've got to set really stupidly big ambitions, because ambition is always higher than achievement. You never will achieve greater than the ambition, because you won't go for the pain, you won't go for the hassle that it takes to do it. So if you've got to set your targets high, it can't be ridiculous that nobody will believe in it. It's got to be a stretch target, but it doesn't have to be reasonable. It has to be aspirational. And as a consequence, your team, you, everybody, will up their game to try and achieve it, to get the most that they possibly can out of it. And if you believe that, and if you believe that is a great way of doing it, the wonderful news about this is that you will always be the most important boss you'll ever have, because you're engaged, you are truly empowered to do what you need to do for your customers, for each other. And as a consequence of that, the one thing that you need to be successful, and it's only one, and it's really easy, and me and Archie were just talking about it earlier on, is self-discipline. You've got to need it. You've got to have that. That's the only thing. You can talk about tenacity but you've got to have that self-discipline to get up early, to do those things, to push the extra mile, because it's those exceptionally small differences that make the difference between fantastically winning at something and being another Me Too, or even worse, losing at these things. It's those little things. And that's the secret of everybody who's successful in any walk of life. Doesn't matter whether it's political arena, whether it's a not-for-profit, whether it's a commercial, whether it's a sports team or whatever. Everybody who does that, who has that, will maximise the opportunity for themselves and for everybody around them. So, intellectual challenge. How do we maximise that? Well, first things, be really clear about what people are good at. Because if they're good at it, and it's fine to be shit at things, you can't be good at everything. Don't try to be. You'll spend your entire life trying to do stuff that you're not very good at and you won't enjoy doing. So just understand what you're really good at and then play to that strength. Because if you're good at it, you'll love it. And if you're good at it and love it, there'll be somebody somewhere that will pay you a lot of money for it. You will be better than everybody else because you're good at it in a starting place. So understanding that, I've got loads of people. Fuck me, I'm 50. I've got loads of my mates who are here. They're great at something, and they're paid well, but they hate it. And you've spent all their life getting all these noughts on bank balances. What the fuck are you going to do with it? It's true. I mean, you get to 50, and you haven't got friends around you of the kind of volume that you want. You're not engaged with society. You've not helped people in the way that you could because you've got this kind of pathological need to have financial return for everything that you do. And you have this empty feeling in the middle of your life. And you think, what the fuck have I done? I've got fantastic, I've got a great house, no mortgage, lovely car and all that stuff, but it's all vacuous. It doesn't actually mean anything. And so I did a bit of research into that because it was quite surprising to me. Why is it that people get to this stage in their life, all the stuff that they've been striving for all of these years, and at the end of it, they're not happy. And there's quite a lot of research about it. I'll fast forward through this because we're running out of time. Anyway, these are some scenes of our office that we've got. This is in the Yellow Shed in Bicester. This is one of our rooms, the Elizabethan War room. We've got our airline room, Air Webmar. All of these things have got different styles, and I always ask people, which room do you want to go in? And I know what kind of meeting I'm going to have. If it's in the airline room and there's only 4, it's going to be a one-to-one, it's going to be quite heavy. So I've got, oh, fucking hell. And if you want to go in, my favourite is the war room, because it's quite nice, it's quite mellow and all that kind of stuff, it's quite a deep thinking room. But you've got all of these different places that we can go and do. But we do have meetings on treadmills and all that kind of stuff as well, which is quite a useful combination. So try and work with people. Make sure that you give the best people the biggest opportunities. Now, the biggest problem with opportunities, as the definition of entrepreneurial, if you like, growth is that everything that you do has got a high degree of uncertainty. If it's research, if it's development, if you're trying new markets and whatever, you've got to give your brightest people these opportunities because they will make the best fist of it rather than anybody else who's more conventional in that way. But you've got to be really tolerant of failure as a consequence of that, because by definition there's going to be a lot of blind alleys, and in everybody, you go back to them squiggles, all those squiggles are things that haven't worked out, and there's loads of them. I mean, without being too glib, it's probably at 5 to 6 blind alleys for everyone that works. And so you're going to get 5 to 6 times to give people bollockings, if you want to look at it that way, and actually it won't get you where you want to go. So you've got to be really clear that if you're wanting to have an entrepreneurial business, you've got to understand that failure is an essential part of it. So you don't give the brightest people the biggest problems to solve, you give them the biggest opportunities to make the most of, and then support them when it fails, because it will fail on a regular basis. And in any business, it doesn't matter whether it's an entrepreneurial one or otherwise, but if you're pushing boundaries, there is always a huge amount of challenge from a personal level, because you've spunked money up a wall, which doesn't make you feel great. And so and having that understanding that is a part of it actually made me a lot better karma than it used to do. It hurt me quite a lot when 30 or 40 or 50 grand went south because of something, and now I've just realised it is part of our DNA as an entrepreneurial business. And we do give everybody a lot of training. You obviously are very lucky to be here, and training is part of your DNA, and a massive part of your life so far has been education. Usually though within businesses, you don't get that. But for us, a rather large part of our budget and time is giving people opportunities. Those are 4 people who have graduated within Webmark, because most of the people that are in Webmark are not graduates. And we try and work wherever possible. There's huge amounts of freeware that's out there, as you know, on stuff of those things. But I also find, personally, it's useful to get out. So for me, I have what's called a DIY MBA, which is for 1 day every week. I go out in the yellow camper van that we've got, which is our up to hills. I like being outside of hills. I think best outside. I always have done, always will do. I revised my A-levels outside and all that kind of stuff. So I've now got to sit at the top of the hill and have that space built into my day. The amount of people that say, who are really successful, there's a guy that I saw the other week, I do a bit of informal mentoring with people, and he said, I've got, you know, he's got 300 employees and he's going spanking it. I mean, making loads of money and all that. I said, I haven't got time to think. And I just said to her, why don't you do what I do? Have half a day in your diary every week where you don't have any meetings booked, it's in there, and just take that space, take that time, go somewhere that you find really good space to think. Don't have any phones on, just print out anything that you want to read or you want to look into or what have you. And it's like, oh my God, and it's free. It doesn't cost anything. You know, all these executive MBAs full of shit, most of them. Because actually, the thing hasn't, it's always trying to play catch up with the reality of the world that we're in, and it's moving quite quickly. But actually, at the moment I'm doing quite a lot on artificial intelligence to understand how to use that in the business, and machine learning and all of those kinds of stuff. And I've got the space every week to learn that kind of leading thinking. And most people don't give themselves. They're so busy. We're on all the time. We've all got, you know, all of the tech in the world and different time zones and stuff. And just that little van and me has made more difference to the business than anything else, any other training I could have done. It's a very useful kind of trait to do. And sharing stuff as much as you possibly can within the business. I do a weekly Bigcast. This is a scarier looking big. So first thing on a Monday morning, I go down to the gym downstairs, and before I do that, about 6 AM on a Monday morning, I'll do a video to the team where they can all have a listen to it anytime they want during the week, if they want during the week. And it just keeps everybody informed as to what they're doing. 5 minutes, just 5-minute insight into the business. And it's a really powerful thing. It's much more human than an email or a newsletter or whatever, and everybody appreciates it, and it's a nice way of saying thank you. It's a nice way of sharing good and bad things about the business, and we've done that for years now. And it's really something that a lot of people copy when they've seen it. You've got to get confident about it and sharing stuff, but that's it. We also share stuff like every time money goes, we've got big screens like this in all of the offices. So every time money goes in the bank, every time it updates every 2 minutes with lots of live metrics to let people know exactly where the business is. On the fun side of it, you've got to do well and do good at the same time. So we very much put a lot of money into charity. So this year we will have hit £500,000 donation to charity, and that basically is all of the interest that we have on the cash that we've got in the business. We don't do fuck all for. We haven't worked hard for it, we haven't striven for it, so we give all of that to charities, so we can do good with that. And that really makes people feel good. We give them days out to give the money to the charity. So you're working with homeless shelters to go out to hospices and to, you know, all sorts of welfare things that we do. And that makes a difference. It makes you realise actually all of the problems that you've really got, you haven't got any. You know, they're all first world problems that we all get so wound up about. And when you see some people literally down the road from you who are in a real tricky space, it helps level people and actually makes people feel a lot more happy about themselves. And we have days here where people hand out the checks, etc., which is not a nice thing to do within the business. So the good thing about it is for the brightest people, especially the young people, it's really important to have, I'm preaching probably to the converted, to have a moral dimension to this, have a good sound moral code within your business. The other thing I was going back onto later about earlier about the not being happy when you've made shitloads of money. This is the inversion. This is from The Economist. The top one is what you spend over your life, because on the upward curve, you've got this up to the age of 48 is the peak of spending. The bottom curve is the global index of happiness in your life. So the nadir of happiness in your life is at 47. I'm 50. That's all uphill for me. I'm the latter, you poor bastards, have got all this to go through. But the fact is that I used to think, the slippery slope from birth, where you're ecstatic all the way to death, where you fall apart, but it's actually a U-bend of happiness, because you actually become more attuned to yourself, you become more content with yourself as you get older. And you don't have to, you can do it earlier. It isn't that you don't have to wait until you're 47. And this is part of what I'm saying, just be more content with yourself. And then as you spend less, you actually become happier, because you're not on the treadmill, you're not trying to do that. Fascinating thing, and that's what I did in my research on my DIY MBAs, to actually find out why so many of people are unsatisfied, even though they're financially better off than they've ever been before. And I think if you can turn it into a cause, and what you do in the day you really enjoy, you really feel is meaningful, you won't have to go through that downward slope for the first half of your life. Those are surveys that we do. I'm running out of time, so I'm not going to do that. But everybody surveys everybody within the business twice a year, totally anonymously, and the only one that gets published is mine. So that's how I have the accountability within the business, and that's a bit of software we developed. Going through it. This is the influential people within Webmark. So the individual surveys times the amount of people who shared, that said they were fantastic people, we can see who's the most influential people in Webmark. I know, for example, I will go back just to that this is the score. These are all the sharing criteria. That's how well I take a joke. So all the things like that. So I know 6.9% better than an average webmarketer do I take a joke, particularly ones political. So these you can measure everything, not just the financial. And little touches like that. That's a pay slip. With every letter that goes out of Webmark, we send a suite out with it, a retro suite, and everybody loves them. And on every pay slip, I write a little note to say thank you. Now it takes an hour and a month or whatever. But it's important that you recognise that people have done it, and you always pick up on the things that are good. This is the dream catcher. This is the wheel of fortune. That if we've hit target over the last month, somebody's dream comes true. So we spin the wheel, and because it's a prize draw, it's tax free, which is fantastic. So they get something without any tax being paid as well, which is nice. And little things like we're given books. And in the synopsis, business used to be, I think, male. But the truth of the matter, going back to the kind of apprentice, nasty, scary, pointy fucking dream, and now it is female. And if you don't believe it, you tell me which side of the traits that you would like to work with people on. It doesn't take you too long to see that actually the style of work has changed quite dramatically from the command and control structure that you've got. And it just feels more natural now to have the more flexible, the more accommodating, the more empathetic, the more listening type of working environment than it used to be. And you can create huge amounts of value for yourself while still doing that. So I've only got 4 minutes left now. So I'm on to my money. This is the Marxist bit. So we do all the stuff that you'd like to do in a normal business. You look at value stream mapping KPIs, you make sure that you understand the difference between buys and sells and all that kind of stuff. But where we are slightly different is that I don't look after number one, I want to look after other people, and as a byproduct I get it. So we've come up with what we call the SEXY scheme. And the SEXY scheme is the Senior Executive Incentive Scheme. And anybody who's been there for 2 years is in the scheme. So it's not about your status or whatever, it's just the length of time, because if you're a good webmarketer, you get into this scheme. So, I'm just fast forward because I've got to run through this. And as I say, you can download it, so don't feel it's all a bit of bollocks. And that's all about collaboration. So at Webmark, we do harvest all of the added value, all of the profit that you would expect to do in a business. But then the difference is we have this thing called surplus profit. And if anybody's read any Marx, he was on about the surplus profits went to the capitalists, who then propagated it and carried on screwing the proletariat or workers down into the ground. So what we've done is we've worked out what enough is that Webmark needs to reinvest in all of the innovation that it does, etc., and to be financially secure, and then that is enough. And then we've worked out what the ownership team need, and that is enough. And then we share the rest out amongst the business. So we use Marxist principles of redistribution with capitalist discipline of value creation, because the truth of the matter is capitalism is fantastic at making money. No better system in the world. But it is also pretty dreadful at sharing it out fairly. Whereas Marxism really does share it out fairly, but is rubbish at making value in the first place. So you can't do it the other way around. You can't do Marxist first and then try and make it. It doesn't work. Just look at Venezuela, etc., etc. So what we've done now is we decided for all of the years, £400,000 is enough of post-tax profits that gets retained within the business. And that's given us a balance sheet like that. There is no other business in the country that will have that as a balance sheet, as a constant, steady growth all the way over the years, and because we just save the same amount of money all the way. So we've got great credit lines, everybody knows they're going to get paid, everybody's secure, etc., because it just accrues over the time. And then what we do, we have the distribution. So between £400,000 and £1 million profit, half of it goes to the ownership team, the other half goes to the business. Above £1 million profit, it all goes to the team, 100% of it. And that changes the dynamic, because it's that we've made over £1 million for the last few years. Every pound that they create, every pound that is saved that didn't spend that it needed to go into the team. What that equated to for everybody was a bonus of 43.7% of base salary through the business. And it's not by doing anything different than a normal business, but redistributing that value. But it changes the dynamic. Everybody within the business, as you would imagine, if you're getting that kind of bonus every year, it really does make a difference. You are an owner of the business, irrespective of all the kind of shareholdery type stuff. So in synopsis, we believe that people are the only differentiators. So if you engage them intellectually, emotionally, and financially in the running of the business, it empowers them and it allows them to create unique value, and it shares it back with them. And for us, that means that because people buy people first in any business, 87% of our customers are referrals from other customers, and you can tell the difference. You step into our office, you feel the vibe straight away. Everybody who goes there says it. You don't need to. We don't need to plan it or whatever. You just walk in there, and it feels very, very different. But things don't always go well. We have a happy ometer. We had somebody left and they fucked us over a bit, and that made everybody very unhappy. So we just shared. Like in the best practice, we had a kind of town hall meeting. We all sat down and explained what had gone on, and the very next day, everybody's happy again, because you've shared, you've been honest, etc., etc. So I've kind of run out of time. Just to say, life isn't always a bed of roses. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much, Simon. I think we can manage about one question if you all promise to then move very fast into the Nelson Mandela lecture to finish up today.
You first, thank you.
Okay. Do you state it upfront to your employees that you will give bonus if the revenue or the profit is above something?
Yeah. Irrespective of what we do, 400,000 is what we've always kept in the business for the last 18 years since I've run it. With this profit share, so that's always been £400,000, so it accrues over time, and then we've made more profit over time, and therefore the percentage that goes to the team, the basics salary of people in the scheme gets divided by the surplus profits, and that gives us a percentage, and everybody gets the same percentage of their base salary.
But do your employees start to take it for granted because it's expected already, and not
not really, no, because they know they've made it. And they know how hard it is to make it, and there's no we might have a really bad year and there's nothing. So it's because it's a voluntary scheme and it is a bonus-based scheme. I don't think anybody, everybody is very appreciative of getting it. There is a chance that you could. We're going to cap it at 100%. So you've got to work a year and get a year free effectively, and then above that it'll go into their pension. They can't draw it down, it will go only into their pension, so otherwise it becomes a bit too much, if you know what I mean.
how you deal, like, if you have Gandhi, Teresa, or Mark in your heart, but Warren Buffett and Hitler in your head, how you deal that conflict?
With a person, with
Yes,
me.
individual level, yes, if suppose.
I think transparency is an amazingly powerful force within Webmark. If we've got two rules in Webmark. A, would your mum be proud of you if you did it? And then secondly, just in case your mum is a psychopath, would you be proud of it if it's in the public domain? So if it's open, that everybody can see you doing it. If those two things go, you can't be wrong. Because people, you look at all of the things, all of the kind of Volkswagens and people hiding things and Enrons and Ponzi schemes. If it's in the public domain and your mum would be proud of it, the chances are 99.999% of the time you're covered. And it makes it really simple. And it's a real simple arbiter. Do whatever you want. No big rule books, or as long as those two things apply, you're not going to be wrong.
Thank you so much.